if you're thinking about getting a bike and you're asking this question of, well, should I get a 125cc mini bike, or should I get a scooter? Should I get a beginner bike, quote unquote, that's 250 or 300 cc's? Or should I go for a big boy bike at 500 or more cc's? Or, the Kawasaki Z400 or their Ninja 400. This is a really good and very important question to ask, and it's one that I hope to help you out with figuring out today. Why don't we see what a beginner bike can do here? It might be good, might be bad. Alright, at this point I'm going to settle down. Woo! I could ride that harder, but it starts increasing the ability, the chance that I'm going to go down on the bike. Now I got to follow a Prius. That's what I get. So listen, don't ride like that, especially all the time. But it's fun. And you can do it on a bike like this, a 300. People race these bikes. There's actually, like a MotoGP race class at 300cc, and those guys are not riding like beginners. You don't necessarily have to ride like a beginner on a beginner bike, and it actually gives you a very forgiving way to learn how a bike functions and how to ride. So I would tell you that just because you happen to have a 300cc bike does not necessarily mean that you are a beginner. See, that's a funny notion to me, that any sized bike represents a skill level. What I would say is that a 300cc bike is the best tool to become a better rider, and because of how forgiving it is, because if you give minor changes to inputs on the throttle, or on a single disc brake instead of a double disc brake, your vehicle actually can't accelerate or stop as fast as a super sport bike, which is very, very good for a beginner, because you're gonna learn without dropping your bike. You're gonna learn without doing a lot of the fails that you see when other people are riding. Another huge benefit to this bike is it weighs 360 pounds wet. 360 pounds is very heavy when it comes to, stuff you push around in everyday life, but it is very, very light compared to other bikes. It's going to be bigger than the Z125s and the Groms, but it is going to be much lighter than, a full-size or mid-size bike like a 650. With all this being said, I do wonder what my next bike's going to be. It very possibly could be a 300 or 400 or 500 or 650. I don't see myself getting a super sport. Whew. But what I'm afraid of is that a lot of folks are going to feel like they need a bike that has more power because other people tell them it has more power. Oh, these nice purple flowers. This is wonderful. And based on other people's opinions, they're going to pursue a bike that they think they're man enough to handle, that isn't a weak and small bike, and they're going to buy a big bike, and what's going to end up happening is they are not going to be well acquainted with the full. They're not going to be acquainted with the full use of their throttle. and they're kind of just going to be scared of their bike, and they're not going to be able to really test the limits of it. If you're a guy like me and you do to some extent want to ride in a spirited way, get a bike that you can really learn on, where you can understand the whole bike, what it can do. And for me, it's a 300. Downshift, engine brake. Hello, little fella. Oh gosh. I didn't actually want to kill him. So this is going to conclude my thoughts, I think, on beginner bikes. In conclusion, I will say, go ahead and buy a 300cc bike. Depending on how into riding you want to get, it's a bike that is going to be able to do a lot for you. It's going to be able to transport you and your stuff. It will be able to putt around and carry a passenger if you want to do that at maybe lower speeds, where you don't need a lot of torque. If, like, for instance, passing on the highway with a passenger, it's probably not something you're going to be able to do on this bike. However, passing on the highway in this bike is definitely something you can do, and I do that in my other videos. So definitely consider a 300 bike, because it's not a beginner bike. It's a bike that you can get as a beginner, and the cost of replacing it or fixing it is a lot lower. The learning curve is not as steep, so you can push that bike to its limits and become a great rider on it. And then at that point, get ready for a bigger bike if you want it, or you might just find that this bike is a perfect size for you and you love it. So those are my thoughts. 300cc sport bike, 250cc sport bike, I'd say go for it. If you have more detailed questions for me, or if you have other thoughts on other size bikes you think people should start on, please leave it in the comments. If you thought this was a video worth watching, hey, subscribe, because I like to do this, and I want to build a group of people that like watching these videos. So as I'm trying to find my voice as a YouTube creator, I don't want my content just to be driven by, what does John like, what does he want to upload. But to some extent, I definitely want it to be shaped by a community of folks that say, hey, please make a video on this. This would be helpful. So if there's anything you want to see, more questions you have about riding, let me know. So thanks for watching, and we'll catch you on the next one.